with generations of soundtrack to feel, to cry, to remember. But now, decades later, where is Barbara Mandrell? What became of the star who once ruled country music? Before we begin, how would you rate Barbara Mandrell as a country legend from 0 to 10? Share your thoughts below, like this video, and subscribe to Celebs Rewind so that the memories of true legends never fade. I really don't have a speech. It's the biggest moment of my life, and I have nothing. Before she became the shining jewel of country music, Barbara Mandrell was just a little girl in Houston, Texas. Born on Christmas Day, 1948, into a home where music wasn't just a sound, it was a way of life. Barbara Irby Mandrell, a skilled guitarist and music entrepreneur, and her mother, Mary Ellen, a devoted piano teacher, surrounded Barbara with melodies before she could even speak them. In this tight-knit family, dreams were crafted with discipline, and talent was nurtured with relentless devotion. From the moment she could walk, Barbara was drawn, not to dolls, but to instruments. Her childhood playground was her father's music store, where steel guitars gleamed and strings sang. While her peers chased after childhood fun, Barbara chased perfection. Long practice hours that left her tiny fingers raw, vocal sessions that demanded more than breath. But she never complained. Even as a child, she understood that her gift was something sacred, something meant to be shared. At just 11 years old, Barbara was dubbed the Princess of Steel, a title earned through dazzling skill on the steel guitar that defied her age. That same year, her father, seeing a spark that could no longer be contained, arranged for her to perform alongside country legends. She toured with icons like Patsy Cline and Johnny Cash, captivating audiences not just with technical brilliance, but with poise and presence far beyond her years. Yet behind the curtain, life wasn't glamorous. It was lonely hotel rooms, exhausting rehearsals, and the quiet ache of a childhood lost to the spotlight. As friends enjoyed dances and carefree days, Barbara was learning how to handle critics, memorize complex arrangements, and live up to a legacy she hadn't chosen, but had embraced. That tension deepened when the Mandrell family band was born, her father at the helm, her mother on piano, and her sisters, Louise and Aline, beside her. Touring relentlessly, they became a sensation. But for Barbara, the applause often brought questions. Is this my dream or my destiny? Still, she carried on, not just for her family, but because music, in its purest form, still lit something within her. At 19, she found a rare kind of love. In Ken Dudney, a Navy pilot turned drummer who saw the woman behind the star. She married him, and for a moment considered stepping away from music. But the pull of the stage, the roar of the grand old opera, was too strong. Standing under those lights, she felt it again. The rush, the purpose, the calling. In 1969, her big break came. Barbara signed with Columbia Records, and her debut single, a bold, soulful cover of I've Been Loving You Too Long, made critics and fans take notice. Her style was daring, blending country roots with R&B soul, a choice that earned her both admiration and criticism. But Barbara didn't fold. She leaned in. Her debut album, Treat Him Right, in 1971, was more than a collection of songs. It was a declaration of independence, of artistry, of womanhood. Tracks like Playing Around with Love and Show Me carried stories, strength, and truth. Her voice wasn't just heard, it was felt. Barbara's journey wasn't overnight success. It was built note by note, show by show, across decades of hard-won respect. She forged a path where none existed, not just for herself, but for every woman who dared to dream of owning the stage in a man's world. Every time Barbara Mandrell stepped on stage, she didn't just perform, she testified to resilience, to sacrifice, to the power of a little girl, a steel guitar, and a dream that never let go. And finally, The world was listening. And I know firsthand, because I filled in a little bit. As the 1970s unfolded, Barbara Mandrell's name was no longer whispered in music circles. It was shouted from coast to coast. In 1975, she took a bold leap, signing with ABC Records, a move that would push her music and her legacy to daring new heights. Partnering with visionary producer Tom Collins, Barbara unleashed a string of hits that transformed her from rising star to reigning queen of modern country. Her single Standing Room only lit up the charts and paved the way for a revolutionary shift in her sound. Gone were the traditional lines. In their place came a rich fusion of country, soul, and R&B. It wasn't just catchy, it was fearless. Songs like Married But Not to Each Other and Woman to Woman gave voice to stories rarely heard in country music. Stories of complex love, strength in heartbreak, and the quiet power of female perspective. Her lyrics didn't just entertain, they empowered. Barbara's influence extended far beyond the radio. Her concerts became dazzling theatrical experiences, redefining the genre. With elaborate stage designs, synchronized dancers, and high-energy lighting, she turned every venue into an electrifying celebration of sound and spectacle. Costume changes mid-show added a sense of drama and flair, but it was Barbara's sheer talent that truly captivated. She didn't just sing, she performed. Audiences watched in awe as she moved effortlessly between instruments, saxophone, banjo, bass, and her signature steel guitar. At a time when few female artists took such risks on stage, Barbara made bold experimentation look natural. Her shows were masterclasses in charisma and command, and fans walked away feeling like they had just witnessed something historic. Behind the scenes, Barbara's work ethic was legendary. Rehearsals stretched into the early hours of the morning. She meticulously crafted every detail. From vocal phrasing to the positioning of stage lights, she demanded excellence, not just from herself, but from everyone around her. And she did it all with grace, never letting the pressure dull her sparkle. In 1978, her hit, Sleeping Single in a Double Bed, soared to #1, cementing her place among country's elite. The song's themes of loneliness and quiet resilience struck a universal chord. 1 year later, If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right redefined her public image. Here was a woman unafraid to confront the gray areas of love, who embraced emotional complexity and invited her audience to do the same. She continued her climb with an unbroken streak of hits through the late 70s and early 80s, Years, Crackers, and the now legendary I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool. Each track was more than a song. It was a statement, a rallying cry for authenticity in a world growing ever more polished and performative. With these anthems, Barbara wasn't just climbing charts. She was shaping the soul of country music itself. Her ability to blend genres, break molds, and speak directly to the human experience earned her widespread respect from peers and critics alike. She made history in 1980 and again in 1981, when she became the first woman to win the Country Music Association's Entertainer of the Year award 2 years in a row, an accomplishment that would later be matched only by artists like Taylor Swift. In those moments, Barbara stood not just as a star, but as a trailblazer, living proof that women could lead in a male-dominated industry. Throughout this golden era, Barbara never lost touch with her roots. She remained approachable, grounded, and deeply connected to her fans. She often spoke of her gratitude for the applause, the support, and the ability to share her voice. That humility, coupled with her unmatched talent, only deepened the public's admiration. Even in her busiest touring years, Barbara maintained her deep faith and commitment to family. She frequently returned to Nashville to rest and reflect, drawing strength from her husband Ken Dudney and their growing family. It was this balance between dazzling showmanship and genuine humanity that made her unforgettable. By the early 1980s, Barbara Mandrell had become more than a performer. She was a force, a woman who had turned pressure into power, doubt into drive, and talent into timeless legacy. Her music resonated across generations, across genres, and across the world. And yet, even as her star blazed brighter than ever, fate had another chapter to write, one filled with unexpected tragedy and unbreakable strength. To entertain and do our jobs, and it's not always ego, honest, it isn't. It was a moment that changed everything, a split second of horror that would redefine her life. Barbara Mandrell, once the golden force behind country music's brightest lights, faced the unimaginable in 1984, while driving home through the familiar roads of Nashville with her two young children. A teenage driver veered across the center line and crashed head-on into her car. The impact was brutal. The young man, Mark White, died at the scene. Barbara and her children survived, but were left with lasting scars, both seen and unseen. Barbara's injuries were severe: a broken femur, shattered ankle, and most critically, a traumatic brain injury. The woman who once commanded the stage with flawless timing and radiant presence suddenly struggled to recall names, places, even pieces of her own identity. "I felt like a part of me had vanished," she later recalled. What followed wasn't just physical rehabilitation. It was a slow, heartbreaking journey through emotional darkness, uncertainty, and isolation. Adding to her anguish was public misunderstanding. In order to claim medical coverage for the crash, Barbara was legally required to file a lawsuit against the deceased driver's estate. Barbara was a routine insurance necessity, but to the public it seemed cruel. The backlash was swift and painful. Rumors swirled, headlines twisted the truth. Fans who once idolized her questioned her integrity. But Barbara Mandrell was never one to be broken by misunderstanding. Just 8 months after the crash, still healing, still aching, she stepped onto the stage once more. It wasn't a sold-out arena. It was a charity concert beside her friend Dolly Parton. Her hands trembled on the microphone. Her voice wavered. But in that moment, Barbara showed the world what real courage looks like. It wasn't the return of a superstar. It was the rebirth of a fighter. From that moment forward, she turned pain into purpose. Barbara became an outspoken advocate for seatbelt safety, lending her voice and her story to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. She didn't sugarcoat her experience. She used it. Every scar, every memory lapse, every moment of despair to help others understand how fragile and how precious life can be. Still, the road back was anything but smooth. The effects of her brain trauma lingered. There were days when memories blurred, when confidence faltered, but she found strength in the quiet corners of her life, in prayer, in the steadfast love of her husband Ken Dudney, and in the laughter of her children. These were the lifelines that held her steady. As the 1980s gave way to a new musical era, Barbara's place in the charts began to fade, but her impact did not. Her performances became less about glitter and more about grace. She brought to the stage not just melodies, but meaning. Every lyric, every note carried the weight of a woman who had faced her worst fears and stood tall. In 1997, at the height of her emotional maturity and artistic wisdom, Barbara made the stunning choice to retire at age 49. There was no scandal, no faded spotlight, only love. A mother choosing to be present for her youngest son, Nathaniel, during the pivotal years of adolescence. She even sold her instruments, signaling not a pause, but a true farewell. Her final performance, fittingly titled The Last Dance, was a masterclass in emotional storytelling. The stage shimmered, fans wept, artists across the industry paid tribute. Barbara stood there one last time, not as a victim, not even as a legend, but as a woman, wholly at peace with her choices. Though she stepped away, Barbara never let go of music. She sang in church. She comforted friends and fans with hymns and stories. In 2009, she was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, a moment that should have been pure triumph, but was bittersweet. Just 2 months earlier, her beloved father Herbie had passed. Still, she stood on that stage and said proudly, "The name Mandrell is the legacy my father left me." Today, Barbara Mandrell lives a life of quiet joy. On her ranch near Nashville, she finds beauty in simplicity, tending her garden, watching sunsets with Ken, and holding close the memories that shaped her journey. She has traded on course for evenings of peace, and for Barbara, that trade was worth everything. And yet, her story continues. Artists like Carrie Underwood, Faith Hill, and Shania Twain still speak her name with reverence. They call her a trailblazer, a warrior, a woman who redefined what it meant to be powerful and feminine in music. Barbara Mandrell didn't just overcome tragedy, she turned it into testimony. She proved that from the deepest wounds can come the most radiant light, and in doing so, she gifted us not only unforgettable music, but a legacy of resilience, purpose, and profound human strength. Hosting the show that year with the wonderful Mac Davis. Now, at 76, Barbara Mandrell leads a life far removed from the bright lights and roaring applause that once defined her world. But if you think her star has dimmed, think again. In the stillness of her Tennessee ranch, surrounded by rolling hills and cherished family memories, Barbara lives in a kind of peace that only a life fully lived can offer. She may no longer grace the stage with saxophones and steel guitars, but the echoes of her voice and the strength of her spirit still ripple through the hearts of generations. Barbara's impact on country music isn't just etched into the charts, it's woven into the very soul of the genre. Her boundary-breaking blend of traditional country, soul, and R&B wasn't just bold, it was revolutionary. In a time when the genre was defined almost entirely by male voices, Barbara stood tall with grace, grit, and undeniable talent. Her presence shifted the landscape, and artists who followed, from Faith Hill to Carrie Underwood, walk confidently through doors she helped open. Carrie Underwood once said, "Barbara Mandrell didn't just perform. She taught us how to command a stage and still keep our hearts whole." That sentiment has echoed across the industry, with legends and newcomers alike recognizing the trail Barbara blazed. Her induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2009 was not just a celebration. It was a coronation, a moment of recognition that she had shaped not just music, but minds, hearts, and possibilities. And it wasn't only the music that left an impression. Barbara's personal story, her unwavering faith, her family-first values, her resilience in the face of tragedy, resonated with fans who saw in her not just a performer, but a kindred spirit. She turned every hardship into testimony, every tear into wisdom. Her transparency about the aftermath of her car accident, the emotional toll of fame, and her desire for a simpler life spoke volumes in a world hungry for authenticity. Her home, Fontanelle Mansion, once a living space and now a tourist attraction, stands as a tribute to that legacy. Visitors walked the same halls where Barbara lived and loved, surrounded by artifacts from a life of purpose. The mansion is more than a memory. It's a living museum of resilience, music, and family. In retirement, Barbara continues to lead by quiet example. She supports charitable organizations, advocates for road safety, and mentors young artists when called upon. She's not chasing applause, she's choosing peace. And in that choice lies a different kind of power. The power of a woman who knows her worth, has lived her purpose, and offers the world a model of graceful aging. In 2022, when Barbara made a rare public appearance at the Grand Ole Opry to celebrate 50 years of membership, she didn't need to sing a note. Her presence alone moved the audience to tears. As young artists performed her classics, Barbara sat beaming in the front row, proud, grateful, and utterly unforgettable. Her eyes sparkled not with ambition, but with the deep, abiding joy of someone who has loved deeply, lived fully, and inspired endlessly. Her name to this day is spoken with reverence, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. Through triumph and tragedy, through stages and silences, Barbara Mandrell has remained a symbol of strength and grace. Her music lives on, but more importantly, so does her message, that even when the stage goes dark, the legacy of love, courage, and authenticity continues to shine. And as fans listen to "I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool," or "Sleeping Single in a Double Bed," they don't just hear a voice. They remember a moment, a feeling, a woman who gave her all to every note. Barbara Mandrell may no longer take the stage, but she will forever hold one in the hearts of those she moved. It was just the greatest. Some stars fade quietly when they step out of the spotlight, but not Barbara Mandrell. Her light endures. It shimmers in the harmony she left behind, in the memories etched into the hearts of those who grew up with her music, and in the strength she showed in every chapter of her life. From the steel guitar prodigy to the powerhouse entertainer, from the devoted mother to the voice of resilience, Barbara's journey has never been about chasing fame. It's been about staying true to who she is. And in doing so, she became more than a legend. She became a lighthouse. If her story brought back a memory, warmed your heart, or left you reflecting, don't let it end here. Leave a comment and share what Barbara means to you. Like this video if her songs once played in the background of your life. And subscribe to Celebs Rewind for more timeless journeys, because honoring icons like Barbara Mandrell is how we keep their stories alive for the next generation.